There are 5 things that are crucial to doing Etsy print on demand. So in today's video, I'll go over each and every one of them so that you'll be prepared when you are actually launching your store. Let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing to have set when you're actually starting Etsy, in my opinion, is to have either a sole proprietorship or an LLC when you go into it. And the reason for that is that it just makes everything easier down the line. Now, there are crucial differences between the two types, and it probably varies from country to country. I live in Sweden, so that's where my experience comes from, but there are probably similarities between countries. So here, at least, when you have an LLC, it's a lot better when you're doing bigger numbers overall on Etsy. The margin for that is around 60K in profit each year. If you're doing above that here in Sweden, it's always better to have an LLC, because you basically have to pay an added tax on profits above around 60K plus. The first part of this, when it comes to an LLC versus a sole proprietorship, is that if you're more profitable and if you're doing bigger numbers with your Etsy store, then an LLC could be a good thing. But if you want to start out small and have the easiest way to go about it, then a sole proprietorship is a great way. I had a sole proprietorship when I started. That's, in my opinion, the easiest way to go about it in the beginning if resources and stuff like that are scarce. But there's 2 more important things to know here, and that's that an LLC requires more admin stuff, just more overall like accounting, bookkeeping and stuff like that. And a sole proprietorship is easier with that. That's also why I meant that if resources are scarce, not just money, but if time as well is scarce, which it is probably for everyone. But if most things are kind of scarce and you're not going into Etsy like some kind of budget, then definitely a sole proprietorship is an easier way to go about it. But definitely comes with a detriment that I'll go into in a sec. But apart from that, an LLC here in Sweden, you need like 25,000 kronor, which is about $2,500 to start an LLC here in Sweden. And I'm not sure how it is in other parts of the world, but here at least you need that amount of capital to have put in as shares within the company. And a sole proprietorship doesn't cost anything. You just basically register for it and then you kind of have it. But the caveat to this is that Etsy doesn't allow transfer of shops. So that kind of means, at least from my understanding, that means that you can't actually switch. Like I had a sole proprietorship before, I can't switch that sole proprietorship to an LLC, because technically the sole proprietorship is me as a person and the LLC is a separate entity, and the separate entity in and of itself, it's like a whole different person technically. So I can't actually, from what I know, change the sole proprietorship and change like the shop to my LLC, because Etsy doesn't allow for transfers of shops. So the caveat to know is that when you start off Etsy, basically you're kind of stuck with the infrastructure that you set from the beginning. That's just an important thing to know. Now, the second important thing would be break-even pricing. What I mean by this is that when we started Etsy, we don't really know about it. At least I didn't know anything about design or anything like that. So I just went to it like point blank. But one thing that made a huge difference for me that I would have really wanted to know in the beginning would be to do break-even pricing when I list my items. What I mean by this is that I don't mean literally having your items at break-even. I mean to have them at a $2 to $4 margin. I've talked a lot about sweatshirts on this channel, so I'll talk some more about it. But a sweatshirt from Monster Digital with their premium pricing costs $22.4. If we sell that at like $29, I think. Yes, then after the Printify cost, which is the gross margin, I'll refer to this as the gross margin, but basically after we sell something on Etsy and then we pay Printify for the cost of the sweatshirt, the cost of the sweatshirt is technically referred to as cost of goods, but we'll just say cost of the sweatshirt. That leaves a profit margin here, because this is what we basically profit from selling on Etsy. We produce it at a price, we sell it at a higher price, and we keep the margins. That's in and of itself what this is and how you get profitable with Etsy. Now, when we list it at Etsy, we want to have a $2 to $4 margin, which is what I refer to as a break-even pricing margin. And the reason for that is that pricing is usually like the easiest lever to actually pull when we want to get rank, as everything on Etsy is really about rank. Like if you're on the first page of Etsy, then you will have a lot of sales raking in. But the key thing to know is that to actually get to the first page, you need to have sales, because the only ones that are on the first page have gotten sales before that eventually landed them on the first page. It's really important to garner sales initially. Now, when we list stuff on Etsy, we actually get a boost in search. It's kind of like, at least in my experience, it's been like kind of them like testing them out to see which ones will perform well. So you get a boost in search initially. What you then can pull on is usually the pricing. That's usually like the easiest and the best lever to actually pull when you list it on Etsy, because if you have it listed on Etsy and it get pushed here with a boost, and then you have it at a really low price, given that they actually want the design that you're selling on top of the product, that will lead them to more easily actually purchase from you. That usually garners you rank, and the more rank you get, the more sales you'll basically get as you rank higher up in the search algorithm. And the key takeaway to know about this too, I mentioned this a bunch of times, but once you actually hit 10 to 15 sales, or you have a 50% Everbee score. What I mean by this is that, so there's a visibility score here on Everbee. I don't know how they count this out. I just know that doing it this way works. If the listing has sold 10 to 15 times at a break-even price with a $2 to $4 margin, and then the visibility score here says 50% or more, then I always raise it up to profit pricing. I'll get into that in a sec. If sometimes though, the visibility score can be like 30% and the item has still sold like 15 times, I think that's because like the niche doesn't get many searches or something like that. And sometimes it's off, as all these things here are actually estimates. They're not always accurate. If it's sold either 10 to 15 times, or it has a 50% or more visibility score here on Everbee, then I raise it to profit pricing. Now, what I want my profit pricing to be is a 30 to 40% margin, which is usually around $10 to $15 in profit. I know it sounds like a lot, but you can sell it for that as long as you have a great offer in and of itself. So what I want to see here is maybe like $38 or $39. Then you have an $11 or $12 gross profit margin before ads and other stuff like that. Once it hits those kind of numbers, 10 to 15 sales at a break-even price, or a 50% visibility score on Everbee, this part right here, then I'd raise the price of the shirt or the sweatshirt to profit pricing, which in this case would be like $39. Now, the third thing that I would have wanted to know when I actually started Etsy was that a guarantee was a huge thing to actually use in a store. I mainly learned this when I read the book $100 Million Offers from Alex Hormozi. He talks a lot about more stuff, but the biggest takeaway from that book, in my opinion, was the guarantees, as the guarantees are huge. So when we all start our Etsy journeys, we have no reviews, no sales, just a bunch of work to do. But when the customer sees your store and they see no reviews and there's like no sales to the store, it looks kind of fishy. I think I learned this from the book or something like that. But an example that I heard was basically, if there's a doctor who's just done like their medical exams and they're gonna perform a life-threatening operation on you, would you want to use that doctor who has never done the actual operation before on humans and successfully? They might have done it on like corpses and stuff like that, but never done it on a human before. Or would you rather have this 50-year-old guy that has done it like 30 times with a like 99% success rate? Which one would you choose? I would definitely choose like the latter, which would be like the old guy who has done it a bunch of times. The whole thinking behind this is that you want to have the proof that you will actually get what you actually pay for. And those are the reviews. In our cases here with Etsy, if the store has thousands of sales and it has thousands of reviews, then there's a high likelihood that you as well as a customer would get a great experience, since there's been so many other people that has had a great experience with the shop. That's what a review and this kind of stuff gives you. It gives the customer a really great feeling and a much more like higher perceived likelihood of achievement, as Alex Hormozi calls it. Kind of likely that they will actually get what they pay for without hassle. Now, to get into the nitty-gritty of this, we have no like reviews and stuff like that in the beginning, but to mitigate that, a guarantee is a great way to do that. So that puts like the risk from the customer on back to the seller. So if you have a guarantee that just stays something simple, like if anything happens for any reason, or if you're unhappy for any reason with your purchase, just contact us within like 14 days or 30 days and we'll be happy to give you a refund or a replacement. Something like that really like offsets the risk from the customer. It won't replace the reviews, as the reviews are some of the most important things to a shop, but it will definitely give a much better chance to actually get sales initially, since there is so much risk for a customer involved to buying from a shop that has actually made no sales. But if you're a more intermediate seller, what a guarantee actually does is that it also raises conversion rates, because it still like improves the perceived likelihood of achievement, at least in my experience, is that it raises conversion rates if you're a more intermediate seller. Now, the fourth thing that's one of the most important things, or maybe even the most important thing when it comes to selling on Etsy, is the design itself. But before we go into that, if you liked the video, please hit that like button and subscribe, and hit that bell notification as well, as that lets YouTube know that you actually liked the video. I'm trying to help as many people as I can with my Etsy print on demand content. That will spread this video to as many people as possible. And in return for doing this, I'll give you the best Etsy print on demand content that I possibly can make. Now, let's get back into it. So one of the most important things when it actually comes to Etsy, and maybe even the most important thing, is the design itself. I made a video about this previously, I'll link it here, but with Etsy it recently made some changes regarding this. So basically they say that you actually can't make listings where it just says your text here or something like that. So that kind of puts that whole exact thing into question. So the principles of the video still stays the same. Like, you need to find a bestseller, like a design that sells really well, and then scale it out to different niches. And the easiest way to do that now, in a nutshell, that is basically to use the niche research video that I've posted previously. You can find that here too. Use that, but within every broad stroke of a niche, you basically try out several designs within the niche to find the winner itself. I would be hesitant to put up listings where it just says your text here, for instance, but I will make an updated in-depth design video later on. But the key thing to know when it comes to design is that the design is one of the main variables to actually get sales, if not the biggest variable to actually get sales, as that's what they're actually buying on top of the blank product. So testing out a lot of different designs within like niches that are actually in demand is super important. But the most important thing is that when you actually find one that actually sells well, don't still test a lot of stuff, just double down on the things that actually works and scale out as much as possible. All designs doesn't actually work in every niche. Let's say that we have a niche that works super well in the nurse niche, for instance. Then I'd scale that type of design out to every sub niche within nurses, so every type of nurse that there is basically. But apart from that, you can also switch the design around in creative ways just to hopefully get another type of design out within the same niche, within the same sub niches. But again, I'll make a more in-depth video regarding design later on. And the fifth thing to know before actually selling on Etsy is that all of this takes a lot of time and a lot of trial and error. What I noticed during my journey is that you always learn incrementally. You can't learn everything at once. In the beginning, you're at zero, but it kind of compounds over time. So you make tests and tests and tests and tests and test upon test upon tests, whether it's design, whether it's different pricing strategies, whether it's just every type of strategy and every type of thing that you can actually think of. You try different things and then you learn, okay, this worked better than this one. Like free shipping works better than paid shipping, or paid shipping works better than free shipping. For instance, oh, a guarantee works really well, for instance, or this pricing works really well for me. You just try out so many small things within your shop, and over time, that kind of accumulates to a really big knowledge set of how to do Etsy. But in the beginning, since we're all at zero and it's kind of a giving that we have to be bad, just having an expectation that in maybe like 3 to 6 months, you will see some results, but in like a year, you will see some tangible results, like after a year or within a year, depending on how much time you're putting into it. But all in all, what everything about like this type of entrepreneurship stuff is, in my experience, is all just testing. Like YouTube is still quite new for me, and all I really do is just test out different stuff here and there to try to get better with every video that I make. But the most important thing to that is that when I do stuff here, I try out my best here on YouTube with new videos, and maybe some things aren't really working super well. Then I actually take a step back. When things aren't really working that well for me, I usually take a step back and then I just reflect on the whole thing to see what actually can be done better. I ask people for feedback and stuff like that. And then once I actually know what can be done better, or I think actually can be done better, I try out those things and then I just move forward with that. And that was the same process with Etsy. You basically are really bad at something, you try out different things, then you kind of notice that this doesn't work here, this doesn't work here. Then you try to get better at it, see what the problem is, you try to get better at it as you go forward, and then you try again. And then you repeat the process. You try out stuff, it doesn't really work, you reflect on it and see what can be done better, and then you make progress. So yeah, those would be the 5 things that I think anyone should know before they're actually selling on Etsy. So if you want to learn more about print on demand and Etsy, I suggest watching this video right here. And if there's any videos that you want to see next, just drop a comment down below and I'll do my best to help out. I'll see you in the next one.